Welcome to the next part of the video on deep water. We saw in the first part that William Douglas grew panicky. So let's see what happened thereafter. A great force was pulling him under, so he went down again and struck at the water. Yes, that was a nightmare for him. He lost all his breath, his lungs ached, his head throbbed, he was getting dizzy. But he remembered the strategy. I would spring from the bottom of the pool and come like a cork to the surface. I would lie flat on the water, strike out with my arms, and thrash with my legs. Then I would get to the edge of the pool and be safe. But he went down endlessly. And then sheer, stark terror seized him. Terror that has no understanding. Terror that knows no control. Terror that no one can understand who has not experienced it. He was paralyzed underwater, stiff, rigid with fear. Even the screams in his throat were frozen. Only his heart and the pounding in his head said that he was still alive. And then, in the midst of terror, came a touch of reason. He remembered to jump when he hit the bottom. So he jumped with everything he had when he hit the bottom tiles. But the jump made no difference. The water was still around him, so the stark terror took an even deeper hold on him. Like a great charge of electricity, he was unable to move, tried to call for mother, but nothing happened. Then, strangely, he started coming out of water. But then he started down a third time. He sucked for air and got water. Then all effort ceased. He relaxed. Blackness swept over his brain that wiped out fear, terror, and panic and brought quietness and peace. He was no more afraid. He felt it nice to go to sleep, to float along in space with tender arms around like mothers. He felt that the curtain of his life fell. The next thing he remembered was that he was lying on his stomach beside the pool vomiting. The chap that threw him was saying, "But I was only fooling." Someone said, "The kid nearly died." Then he was carried to the locker room. Several hours later, he walked home. He was weak and trembling. He shook and cried when he lay on his bed. He couldn't eat that night. For days, a haunting fear was there in his heart. Even the slightest exertion upset him. He never went back to the pool. He feared water. He avoided it whenever he could. That handicap stayed with him as the years rolled by. Whenever he tried to get into water, icy horror would grab his heart. His fear ruined his fishing trips, deprived him of joy of canoeing, boating, and swimming. He used every way to overcome his fear, but it held him firmly in its grip. So let's see how he overcame his fear in the next